So demand avoidance is really interesting, and I mean, I have it, and majority of us have it. And so, what is demand avoidance? Because a lot of people don't know about it, and you might think it's like procrastination. You might be called stubborn, um, like selfish, whatever these things are, like as kids, right, or just as adults. And a lot of us don't have a name for it. So what it is, it's actually overwhelming anxiety or resistance triggered by perceived demands, and this could be external or internal. And I think a lot of people know more about the external, but not as much internal. I'm going to talk about that. If you are on the autism spectrum, you are likely, or likely to, doesn't mean guaranteed, but very often experience what's called pathological demand avoidance. So it's kind of almost like a little bit more extreme version of demand avoidance. And a little bit more rigidity. And so demand avoidance can actually cause distress, and it's something that probably shows up in a lot of our businesses, and we don't know it. And so, a lot of you know that I have a mental health background. And so, what I did is I went in and I looked at this from a provider angle as well. So, if I had, and this is for myself, if I had a client with demand avoidance, what do they say to help them? And then I apply that to myself. And so, a couple things of how they recommend recognizing it in clients, right? If I had a client and I have myself, is one, passive resistance or procrastination. So clients might repeatedly delay tasks, find it hard to start activities, or engage in unrelated activities to sidestep demands, right? So there can be an overlap with our executive function where there's just no fuel. We can't make ourselves. And then there can be another element of that where we are avoiding demands. And sometimes there's crossover. Sometimes you may know the difference. Sometimes you may not know, right? Another thing is anger or frustration when confronted with tasks. So sudden emotional outbursts, especially when faced with expectations or demands, and can suggest underlying demand avoidance. Perfectionism or hyper focus on certain activities. So clients, as they say, might spend too much time and energy on preferred tasks while actively avoiding less appealing ones. So do you see how much overlap there could be with executive dysfunction with this? It's really interesting as I got into it. And then difficulty with transitions or changes in routine. So if you have a strict adherence to certain routines and then there's big resistance to change. And so the difference is like with ADHD, we can have issues with like task avoidance or a task initiation. And we can also need like control or predictability, right? And that could be like safety for our nervous system is something there. So um, kind of differentiating between the two can be what the root is. Are we reducing anxiety or fear, right? Are we trying to avoid anxiety or fear? Or are we avoiding something, right? Or are we just not having the fuel to go, really? So with demand avoidance, when we're looking at that from a, provider perspective or just a mental health perspective, there's a lot of things that can happen mentally as well. And so shame and self-sabotage, so procrastination, avoidance can lead to like self-loathing, a sense of failure, right? Like perpetuating negative self-perception. So if we can't make ourselves do the thing, we can create a story around ourselves. Emotional isolation. So feeling misunderstood or invalidated can cause us to kind of suppress our emotions or withdraw from others. I know for me, I don't know if anybody can relate, but for my demand avoidance, one of the biggest things for me is if, and this, I don't know if sounds like really particular kind of niche, but let's say there's a group of friends and I know some of them and I don't know the other ones, and we're gonna all get in a car and drive somewhere and be there for a while and then drive back, and I don't have control over like the music. I don't know some of the people in the car, so some might be really loud. It might be really overwhelming to me sensory wise. I don't know if we're going to a public place like a theme park, if I'm going to get overstimulated. I'm going to hit my max and get dysregulated, but I can't go home. I don't know if I can get it, go to the car and like take a break. And so that can give me a lot of anxiety because I feel really stuck and I can't regulate. And I think it's a really good example of demand avoidance because it's not that you're combative or selfish or you don't try. It's that we have more sensitive nervous systems and we're trying to regulate those. And the stuff that might be normal to someone else, like, oh, yeah, let's all pile in a car and go to a theme park and it'll be so fun. And then we'll stay till, the sun goes down. That might be really fun for some people, but there's so many unknown variables that could completely dysregulate me that sometimes I miss out, or I drive separately. And which is, so finding those adaptations for that, if you have that around that stuff, is really important so you don't miss out. And thinking like, oh, what's wrong with me? So if I don't have that, but if I had negative self-talk, it'd be easy to say, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just jump in a car and go to a theme park? Like I can't have fun doing that. Like something must be wrong with me. And that's not it at all. We're just trying to regulate our more sensitive nervous systems because we take in more stimulus and more data, right? So sometimes also we can have difficulty with emotional expression. And so we might have alexithymia. We might have trouble identifying or expressing our emotions or identifying what they are. So we might get in situations where we feel stuck because we didn't gauge that we were getting to that point soon enough. And then we're just totally dysregulated. And so we just think, oh, I can't do these things, or I can't go here, instead of like, oh, where's my limit and what's my plan? Right. And so demand avoidance is a really interesting thing. And there's a couple ways that it can show up specifically in real estate. And I think that's an interesting thing to look at to identify. So, one of those things is maybe intending to make calls, but avoiding the phone for hours because you feel stuck, because you feel like you have to, right? It's a rule, there's no other option. Maybe we have a lot of demands in our industry in real estate, or if you're an entrepreneur in another industry, if you're self-employed, if you're a CEO, how many demands do we get as a business owner? I mean, our phone is demand, 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 because we help people. That's our job. And so we can get like burnout on demands. And so we might struggle to reply to texts or to emails, even important ones. We might skip tasks we actually want to do because we know it's going to take a certain amount of time, or we're going to have to do it in a certain area and we don't want to feel stuck, right? And so it can sometimes create like a threat response, right? And it pairs obviously with executive dysfunction. So some other ways like cold calling, door knocking, follow-ups might feel like demands. You know that they work, but you freeze up or delay. You might feel lazy or unmotivated, but it's more of a neurological resistance or overstimulus. Time blocking. So this is another one. Have you ever made a really like beautiful plan and you know what you want to do, time blocking or a schedule or routine or structure, and you've got it and you know it's going to work, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I can't do any of it, and you just walk away, or you throw, okay, I'm seeing a lot of heads. So that can be self-imposed. So internal demand avoidance is if it feels too rigid or too structured, our nervous system can go, wah! Like, oh my gosh, too much. I'm going to be stuck. I can't regulate. This is giving me anxiety. I can't do it, right? I'm just going to go away. I'm going to distract myself. So that's one. Delay. So delay in sending documents, returning texts, like even though it's urgent, right? It's like a demand, it's a resistance. And so we can shut down. And then also another one is visibility. So resistance to creating content, right? You know it builds your brand, but you don't want to do it every day. You don't want to, and it's not that you just don't want to do it. You do, but there's a resistance going on. So perceived pressure can cause avoidance sometimes, even if it's fun. And so there are a lot of things we can do about this though, because if you want to be a real estate agent, we help people. Part of it is responding to demands, right? Like that's part of our job. And if you're a parent, if you're a partner, if you're taking care of anyone, whether it's pets or parents or whoever, there's demands all around us all the time. So one of the biggest things, and this might feel like a simple one, if you don't really have a choice, I mean, we do, right? All of us have a choice. We could quit real estate. You're not stuck in real estate. You could, I mean, technically, we have unlimited choice. You might want to not want to do it, but technically, couldn't you just like walk out the door right now with without even putting your shoes off and just never walk back to your house? I mean, I mean, you can, right? I mean, you're not going to do it, but we really do have a ton of choices. We could do all kinds of stuff. We could go play on a playground if we want to. We could go clean the house. We could just go to eat like five things of fast food. Like we have unlimited choice. I think a lot of times we forget that. And so one of the things that's really helped me, because I'm still going to do the stuff I want to do, is the like just recognizing I have choice, even if it's a crazy choice I can make instead, and then I'm choosing to do the thing. So even if it feels rigid, even if it feels like somebody's forcing me, technically I have free will. I don't have to do it. I'm choosing to. And somehow in my brain that can bypass a little bit of the I have to do this thing. I have to do this thing. So that's one option. It's just reminding ourselves we do have free will. I mean, we could do infinite amount of choices. It's kind of insane, but we do choose to call people. We choose to time block because we are choosing it. The other thing is they talk about lowering the stakes. So giving ourselves permission to do a bad version first or a good enough version. So maybe you make the call, but it's not the perfect script, right? Maybe you make a post and it's kind of messy, or you do a draft, your first one's a draft. So just lowering the stakes and the pressure and like, you don't have to do this thing. You could and be helpful. You don't have to, but you could. That can kind of help. Another thing is just like minimizing it. So micro deadlines, like I could do this for 5 minutes. I'll just do it for 5 minutes and then I'm done. You got the Pomodoro method, which we've talked about, where you work for a certain amount of time, you take a break. Work for a certain amount of time, take a break. Temptation bundling. So this is kind of combining with executive dysfunction, where you're going to put an unpleasant task with something you like. So, what's an example of something you might have demand avoidance? Let's see in the comments, like something that you might avoid. Okay, so doing taxes. Yeah, I see taxes, right? Totally. Okay. Look, these comments are great. All right. So tax is a great one. I think most of us have had some kind of resistance around it. And so you might pair it with something fun, like something you wouldn't normally do. If you want to go get an energy drink, go get it and drink it while you do your taxes. Or if there's music or your favorite artist just, had something new that came out. Or maybe you go to try that new coffee shop or that restaurant downtown or the co-working space. So you're going to pair it with something that's like fun or new or interesting or you wouldn't normally do or dopamine producing. And so it's not just do the taxes and that's it, right? Or you might chunk it down. Body doubling, doing that with somebody else. We've talked about that. And in our group coaching, we've got body doubling that we do as well. And then task chunking. So instead of follow up with leads, we want to chunk it down. Because if there's this big demand, right, you need to follow up with leads, you need to do it now. That can feel really overwhelming. But if we say, okay, first I need to open my CRM. Next, I'm going to look at the leads. Next, I'm going to text one person. And sometimes saying that out loud, writing it out like a checklist, it can kind of be fun instead of this big thing. And then gamify, right? And track it. So I think some of you guys know that I ran a team and we closed 300 sales. I was 26 and I was co-running a team that was doing 300 sales. And my first 3 months in real estate, which is kind of crazy because my first year, I think I was like top in the region or something. It was kind of insane. But the first 3 months, you would not think I was going to be successful. I was avoiding everything. I would sleep in because I thought I needed rest. And then I'd have all this anxiety, and I was like, oh, it's too late to lead generate. And then I'd just like spiral in my apartment, and I didn't do anything. And that was 3 months after I got my license. Like I did nothing, which is insane. By the end of my first year, it was like something like 40 sales or something like that. And so a big breakthrough for that. Was with For Sale by Owner Expired, and that's what ended up happening. And I made it a game of like how many times I could get hung up on. So I'd either get an appointment or I'd get hung up on, and it was like this exposure therapy because they forget you. And for me, I could call them and I get hung up on and call the next day, and they would not even remember me. So I learned it was kind of like this Groundhog's Day where it just started over the next day and somehow it just broke through this just terror. And I'd use body doubling and end up like partnering up with a business partner and all this stuff. And so there's a lot of stuff I did. But I'll tell you, right, if shame and discipline and beating yourself up worked, it would have worked by now. So if it's not working, we want to try something else. So the other thing is, this is kind of a more mental health background, is self-compassion. So demand avoidance is not laziness or weakness. It's years and years and years and years of like trauma, like little trauma, little t, not big T, but little t of being stuck and being dysregulated and having to constantly mask and like numb out and sometimes dissociate your nervous system. Like mine, when we get too overstimulated and it's too much and the brain's going crazy, sometimes our psyche will protect us and kind of make us dissociate and just kind of disconnect from reality a bit. And so I don't want to do that anymore. And so years and years and years and years of being stuck and sitting in meetings and feeling like you're going crazy and trying to keep your body still and hiding different parts of who you are and not interrupting and waiting your turn, all these things, That's like little trauma. So when somebody says, here, come sit in this box, it's normal for our nervous system to go, blah, no, I don't want to do that, right? So having self-compassion of what that's been like year after year after year, especially if you're late diagnosed, is really normal. And we want to recognize that and kind of calm that. And then if we are going to be stuck, we want to give ourselves tools like fidget toys, or like comfortable clothes that aren't overstimulating, or headphones, or sunglasses if it's fluorescent lights, or a hat. All these things that really help us sitting by the back, and taking a lot of breaks. So another thing is with our nervous system, it's really hard to do things if it doesn't feel safe, right? If our nervous system's dysregulated, it's really difficult. It's a lot more difficult for us to hit goals and do all these things. And so when you're looking at this kind of stuff, especially structure and time blocking, which is a big thing that can trigger demand avoidance, it's reminding ourselves that it's not discipline and punishment, and I need to get it together. I need to get my shit together. What's wrong with me? I need to suck it up. I'm too weak. That's what that's going to do, is trigger more demand avoidance. It's I'm doing this because I care about myself. I had a coaching client, and I think a lot of you guys know I've done over 10,000 individual one-on-one calls. And one of the coolest things I've ever heard a client say, and there's quite a few because I've had some great clients, is that lead generation and time blocking is self-care. Lead generation and time blocking is self-care. I mean, isn't it? Right? Like having money and having clients we like to work with, and like having that feeling of success at the end of the day, and not having guilt and being able to be present with our family, that is a huge act of self-care. So by reframing the structure, the time blocking, the lead generation as that being like kind to ourselves and not punishing, and really like loving ourselves and self-care, that can change everything, right? Your schedule is to help you. Your schedule is because you care about yourself and your family, and you want to help yourself. So having that reframe is really helpful, and then watching the over scheduling, right? Having some boundaries around that, so you think, okay, I know this is hard, or this might be whatever, but come this time, I get a break, and actually honoring that is really helpful. um, the type of accountability that you get is going to be really helpful with demand avoidance. So if you have an accountability partner, if you have a coach, we can do better with different types of accountability. A lot of ADHDers do well with the curiosity-based approach because we're already hard on ourselves. And so if you have a coach that makes you feel ashamed when you didn't do something, talk to them about being curious, right? So that would look like, okay, you said you were going to do your taxes when you came to the call, right, last week, and they didn't get done. And I know it was important to you last week. What happened, right? Instead of, oh my gosh, you didn't do it again. What are we going to do? What are the consequences, right? That can be shaming. So when someone says, well, I got overwhelmed, or I couldn't do it. I don't know. I procrastinated. Okay. Walk me through the steps. When did you want to do it the most, and what got in your way? Right? And then what did you do instead? And how did you feel? We want to learn your brain patterns. So we want to learn what you're doing to resist things, because then we're going to get to interrupt whatever that moment was that you made a different choice, and figure out a tool to keep you on that thing. So accountability that's not shame based is going to be helpful, more curiosity based. Um, and then also, we've talked about systems, right? Structuring your business to reduce demands. So you might have templates to answer an email back if you get the same type of question. You might have automations. You might outsource or get a virtual assistant for stuff that makes you want to pull your hair out. So we want to figure out what are the things that might trigger your demand avoidance the most, and how can we work around those? How can we be more flexible? Can we pass those off to somebody else? Can we eliminate them? I would also highly suggest, and this is something that's been really helpful for me, is a demand break, whether that's half a day on a Saturday or a Sunday, where you're turning this thing on silent. I mean, no notifications. You put your phone somewhere else, right? Or you turn everything off on silent, or you have a separate phone for work and business. Something where you're not having demands come in all day long. You're not checking social media because comments, you want to respond to them, messages, right? You need a break from all these demands, because we're not necessarily meant for like, if you think of it, before cell phones and media and all that stuff, people around us might need something, our loved ones, our family, our community. I mean, people have access to you all over. Somebody, it's not that somebody has to walk over to your house and knock on your door to ask for something. They can shoot you a text in 2 seconds, right? So we're getting inundated with demands that we want to help because our clients, but you need to give yourself a break on that. You really do. And that's going to, just calm it down a bit more and just give you some relief. Um, so another thing is like collaborative goal setting. We want to if you're setting a goal with a coach or yourself, we want to be a part of that. Don't just choose a goal because you think you're supposed to, or the owner of your office told you, or whatever. We want to feel collaborative in that, and that we get a say in what that means. Like, why does that matter? What does that goal mean? What does that mean daily and weekly? And for our numbers, does that is that what we want? Are we doing it because we think we're supposed to want it? Right. Well, I want to talk about exposure therapy as well. I mean, I say therapy loosely, but exposing yourself to the thing that you've got a lot of demand around and seeing like kind of a challenge of how difficult that might be for yourself. So expose yourself to it. So there's something that they feel like there's a lot of resistance. Like, let's say for me, going in a car with a bunch of people to an event. I'm gonna look at that differently. Instead of, man, I just need to suck it up. Why am I not normal? Why is this overstimulated? I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do this. This is a challenge. What are the tools I need to support myself? I've got noise canceling headphones. I've got loop earbuds. I have fidget toys in my pocket. I made sure to take my medicine. I've got a snack because low blood sugar can make our ADHD, the volume turn up, right? I'm also going to maybe talk to my friend of who's gonna be there so I know what to expect. If there's somebody who's super loud, I may not sit right next to them. I also might talk to him ahead of time and say, hey, when we get to the theme park, because I'm also on the spectrum, right? If I get super overwhelmed, is it okay if I go sit in your car for a little bit and just take a break if I need to? Right. So I'm going to do all these things so I can still do stuff and partake, but I'm not going to just beat myself up until I dissociate, right? I'm going to honor what that looks like. And so, yeah, just I think acceptance. I think Molly, I just looked at the comments. Molly said that working on acceptance and flowing with what works for energy level. I think that's great. I think a lot of us have spent a lot of time pretending we don't have ADHD or trying to mask our traits or it's not that bad or not understanding what these parts are of us. And radical acceptance is actually going to be a whole other world because when we accept what our limitation or our capabilities are, then we get tools and then we can do the thing. But if you're just denying it and then having a breakdown and getting burned out, you're just going to be in burnout, which a lot of us can be. I want to talk to you about the difference between pathological demand avoidance and demand avoidance. So, pathological demand avoidance is more common if you're on the autism spectrum. And so demand avoidance, right? The root cause of demand avoidance can be executive function, right? Overwhelm, you're trying to regulate fear or not get overstimulated. And you can see with autism, we can have even more sensitive nervous systems and it can cause extreme anxiety or sometimes even pain to the nervous system, right? If a sound is too loud. So yeah, that is a thing to kind of protect you. So demand avoidance can be more situational, right? Sometimes you might get in a car with people that you know and trust. Sometimes you might not. Or sometimes you may be able to sit still. Pathological demand avoidance can sometimes be the same or a little bit more consistent no matter what the environment is. And then demand avoidance for our behavior, passive avoidance, we might have more procrastination, where depending on how autism shows up, right, there's different levels of that. Mine, I'm not going to actively refuse and maybe, but somebody who's might be nonverbal might be aggressive, right, or might do that. So it just depends on where you are in the spectrum as well. So you can kind of see demand avoidance is not necessarily a diagnosis, but it is part of that. So yeah, you can see now, giving choice. If you have kids, anybody have some neurodivergent kids that might have resistance to, hey, you got to clean your room. Ah! Okay, so sometimes with that, choice is really, really helpful. And so that's what I would do. And I've worked with kids in the foster care system who have demand avoidance. And so when you walk in and it's time to clean the room, hey, clean up your room in 10 minutes or you don't get dessert. That's not going to work, right? Especially if they've come from hard backgrounds. So it's, hey, like, this would be so cool to have your room clean. Would you like to start with putting your toys away first, or do we want to get the vacuum? Like, what should we do first? right? That's going to have a very different, because you're giving autonomy and you're giving choice. And if people are kids in the foster care system are going to have even more demand avoidance because they've probably been in some really rough situations and had even less control. So they're going to have a stronger response, you know? Thanks for coming on the call. I do these every Tuesday. They're free. You don't have to be in real estate. You don't have to be with Keller Williams to be on them. They're open for everybody. ADHD call. You're welcome to join us. I've been doing them for 2 years. I've only missed Christmas Day. So please join us. And again, if you want to be in our, longer group, right, and you'd like some more community and some more one-on-ones, check out our paid group, and we have a 7-day trial. So you can try it for 7 days. So anyways, thank you so much for being here, for supporting this project. Appreciate all of you guys. And we will see you in the Facebook groups and see you later. All right. Take care, everybody.